Hey, everybody. It's Father Edward Looney here. And today I want to share with you something scary for me, but I think exciting in the long run. And that's what I'm intending to do with my audio podcast, which I've been putting videos up on YouTube and such. But that audio podcast since 2019, when I launched, was called How They Love Mary. Now, the reason why I started the podcast, How They Love Mary, was for a few different reasons. The first was that I had been a morning show co host, I guess you could say. I was called a Godly Counsel for EWTN's Morning Glory Show for about a year, a little over a year. And it's kind of interesting how that came about. I was just a frequent listener. I was a guest. I interacted on social media. And one day they said, "Hey, we have a hole for Godly Counsel. Would you like to fill in?" And so I did a whole year with them, but then they decided to change the show format. So I loved the show format when I was a part of it. It was four different segments. Kind of the first segment was just what's going on, a little casual talk. Second segment was an interview. Third segment was another little topic. Fourth segment was an interview. And what I really loved was the interview and being able to interact, talk, share questions alongside the other co hosts. But then it was changed to a different format, and it was more like a talk show format. And I just wasn't really comfortable at that time with the format because I really enjoyed the interviews. That's what I'm good at. And I made a decision to step back from the show, to leave the show. And as I considered my options, podcasting was just becoming popular at that time. And I thought, well, you know what? I have followers on social media. I have parishioners. And I have contacts. Like I know people who write books. I write books myself. I'm a part of this community. Why don't I try a podcast? And I thought about different titles for the podcast at that time. I thought like Father Edward and Friends or something like that, but that was too close to another Catholic personality and their podcast. So I chose, no, let's not do that. Kind of putting Father Edward Show didn't seem right to me. I always remember there was kind of one of the major social media influencer priests, you could say, if you want to use that language, that I was talking with him many, many years ago before I was a priest. And he was just speaking at a conference. It was kind of before he went big, but he always gave me the advice, if you ever do anything, don't put your name on it. Always have it be about the Lord, or have a title referencing some kind of general work or something. So I always kind of kept that in mind. Kind of the funny thing is, I think back to that now, is that that priest has a show with his name on it. And I think we realize that in the evolution of branding and whatnot, you kind of need to do that for, being recognizable. Kind of people will gravitate if they see your name, whatever. So I kind of understand, but it's interesting. He gave that advice, and I was heeding that advice back when I started the podcast in 2019. Now, I was a pretty irregular podcaster in 2019, kind of hit or miss here and there. But 2020, COVID, really went at it. I was doing a Lenten series on my book, A Lenten Journey with Mother Mary. And then COVID broke out. And then I just decided to do interviews every week, releasing even 2 episodes a week during that time. And so, How They Love Mary started. So, why did it start? One, because I was leaving the Catholic radio show and I wanted to keep interviewing people, having a voice out there in the media realm. That was one reason. And the second reason was I had been kind of kicking around the idea of writing a book called How They Love Mary. Now, what happens usually is people write a book and then they create a podcast kind of to market, promote the book for a year or whatever. I chose kind of to do it in the reverse way because publishers had turned the book down. And so I was just kind of exploring my options. And I thought, well, you know what? A podcast, How They Love Mary. And well, with that, it will create kind of a name recognition for that title. And then eventually, when I write the book, uh, I'll have an audience, listeners to market the book to. And so that's what I ended up doing, How They Love Mary. Now, in the very early days of the podcast, How They Love Mary, the show uh, really had a Marian focus. So if I go back, so episode 2 was Star of the Sea with Sister Bethany. Episode 3 was Mary's grief and devotion to Our Lady of Sorrows. Episode 4, Mary and the Life of a New Convert. Episode 5, Divine Mercy and Mary with Susan Tassoni. Episode 6, From Islam to Catholicism with Daria Little. So that's kind of where I began, maybe departing a little bit from the Mary interview per se. But of course, Islam, great regard for Mary. We talked about Mary in that episode. Episode 7 was Marian Shrines and Pilgrimage in the U.S. with Marge Fenlon. Episode 8, The Message of Fatima with Father Francisco Pereira. Don't know if I said his name right. Episode 9, Our Lady of Charity with Maria Morea Johnson. Episode 10, this is kind of another departure. The Spirituality and Cause for Canonization of Nicholas Black Elk with Richard May, who I know from the Mariological Society of America. Episode 11, The Message of Our Lady of La Salette. Episode 12, Ave explores the person of Mary with Katie Prejean McGrady. Episode 13, Getting to Know Father Patrick Payne, the Rosary Priest. So suffice to say, you can see here that a lot of these episodes had to do with Our Lady. So it makes sense. A guy who loves Mary, a priest who loves Mary, a guy who's studied about Mary, written about her, would have a podcast about Mary. But of course, kind of the Mary topics dried up, you could say. And more recently than not, what has happened is that this has just been a Catholic talk show where I interview guests based on their books or uh, or other topics. You know, I'll see a tweet and I'll be like, "Oh, I want to talk to that person about that." Next week's episode is just one of those. You'll understand, but I'll just tell you right now. It's with the chaplain who was retiring from the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, he's not like 75, but retiring, done it for a few years. And so I interviewed him, talked with him about his experience as a chaplain. So you can kind of see that the show has morphed, it's changed, and let's just go over some of the more recent episodes. Let's look here. So, episode 236, Saints Who Were Devoted to Saints with Kimberly Begg. Episode 237, Acknowledging and Healing the Father Wound Within Us with Bob Crowell. Episode 238, What We Can Learn from the Popes Over the Course of a Year with Father Jeffrey Kirby. Episode 240, How Thomas Merton Introduced Mark Ehrendoff to the Mystical Writings of St. Catherine of Genoa. Episode 242, Did Catholic Priests Watch Christmas Movies? 241 was about the shift. 243 was Al McCauley about his YouTube series. So you could just see that all of these episodes haven't had a focus on Our Lady. And what I've realized over the time is that that can be a little misleading. And in fact, when I was talking, I kind of texted back and forth with about 6 media contacts that I consider good friends. And so I'm like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Like, I was telling them that I was thinking about changing the name of my podcast, How They Love Mary. I was going to rebrand, you could say. And a lot of people, when I was talking about this rebrand, they said to me, well, I thought your show was all about Mary. And it's kind of funny to me because here I am posting links and you see the title of the show, and the title of the show, Do Catholic Priests Watch Christmas Movies, has nothing to do with Mary. So I don't know why we would necessarily think that that show had something to do with Mary. But I thought the title, How They Love Mary, it served its purpose. I wrote the book. I published the book. We did episodes about it. We were doing a series and I interrupted it. I kind of canceled the series, if you will, because I noticed that kind of listenership was dipping during that time. And so I was going through, and not only was it dipping during that series that I was doing on the book, but also it was really hard for me to schedule individuals and get them on and record the interview and such. So it was really a twofold reason why I canceled the series on the book, but it served its purpose. It's been a Marian podcast. And But people, they would say, I thought it was all about Mary. And it wasn't. So it was misleading. It's a bit limiting because maybe, I don't know, maybe a Protestant, a Christian who's not Catholic, they might see the title and they'll be like, I don't want to listen to this. Even though they might see an episode, maybe they're like really drawn to Mark Arondoff and Thomas Merton, and they're like, I don't know why I would watch this, why I would listen to this. So uh, I've made the decision to rebrand and to introduce a new name. It's going to be a slow rollout. So my hope is if I do this right, everybody who is currently subscribed will continue to be a subscriber if I do it right. Now, I'm a buffoon, so I could not follow the directions right, but I'm hoping to keep what they call the RSS feed the same. I'll change the name. I'll change the URL at Fireside. So uh, I'll change the album cover to reflect the new name. So you'll see these gradual changes begin to happen. Now, if you see that I'm no longer in your feed, my podcast, my name, whatever, well, go look for this new podcast. Let me tell you the name. So I deliberated. I came up with lots of different names. I had names suggested, recommended to me. And the first name that I had, which I really liked, got shot down by everybody. And I kind of understand why they shot it down. So I get it. Maybe I'll tell you what it was just for humor's sake. I want to call it My Questions, Their Answers. So just the fact to emphasize this is an interview based podcast. I'm talking to guests, we're having conversations. Now, one of the reasons why I liked that title, and I'm not going with that title, but one of the reasons I liked that title was because I can kind of see that maybe there's going to be a few episodes where it won't be about faith. So maybe it won't be about Catholicism. That maybe, there's a new business that opened up in the town that I serve, and I would just like to talk to them about what inspired them to start up their business. Or there's an Instagram page I follow where this couple, these two individuals, they are traveling to every single country in the world. And maybe I want to have them on. And, they do have a faith-based background, but I don't know if we're going to talk about faith. So I don't know if it's always going to be faith based. So that's why I kind of liked My Questions, Their Answers, but that got shot down. Other names were suggested to me, and I made the decision that I was going to rebrand at some point, and I didn't have that name yet. And finally, it came to me because the other day I was doing some recording of videos right here in this little room where I've been doing the recordings now and whatnot. And I realized that on that video and on the next video, and then I went back and listened to other videos. I didn't always say this, but I typically would say, hey, everybody, it's Father Edward Looney here. Hey, everybody, it's Father Edward. That's the name of the new podcast. It's just the way that I greet the people, where I bring them into the conversation that I'm going to have with whatever guest it is. You might have noticed on the How They Love Mary podcast, I have been having interviews with people in film. And so I wanted a channel, I was putting it out on the How They Love Mary because people are following the content I'm producing, I am doing. And so I'm like, that's an audience. So I'll just put it there, even though it wasn't like necessarily faith-based. It wasn't about Mary. And so like for me, it felt wrong to be putting it there. So as we do this rebrand, hey everybody, it's Father Edward. Uh it'll be a home base for a lot of these interviews that I do then. Interviews about faith, interviews about film, interviews about life. That's the tagline. Hey everybody, it's Father Edward Looney. Or hey everybody, it's Father Edward. Inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life. I think that covers everything. So I'm really looking forward to the rebrand. I'm going to be rolling it out here in the month of February, and there might be some episodes where it will say, hello, my name is Father Edward Looney, and you're listening to the podcast How They Love Mary. Now, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to edit that out and I'm going to do the new beginning. And so if you're watching the video, you might see kind of a jumpiness there. Hopefully in the audio, it'll be fine. Also in the rebrand, as I am doing not just audio, but hoping to move towards more video-based podcasts, you'll see here in this video, and maybe you're listening and you'll be like, oh, this audio is better than some of the audio, because what I've been doing for the videos, I've been recording on Zoom. And so I didn't have a Zoom mic. I had a Blue Yeti, it stopped working. My other mic didn't work. I was always worried about using AirPods because I didn't know if it was going to like pick up on my breathing or like other little noises and such. And so I kind of was afraid to do that. So I bought this mic, and this mic is going to enhance the YouTube videos. It's going to enhance the audio. It's the Zoom audio that I'm recording on now. So I hope that you enjoy that, you like that, that it's better quality, that it'll be more enticing for you to listen. So I'm very excited to be rebranding and to calling this, hey everybody, it's Father Edward. So again, watch for the rebrand. You're going to see it slowly happen. And I'm going to be getting it all figured out. And we'll go from there. I'm grateful you listen. I'm grateful you've been a subscriber. And I hope that as this rebrand unfolds, hey, everybody, it's Father Edward, that it's going to grow our audience, that without a limiting title like How They Love Mary, that more people will be drawn into these conversations that I want to have with so many different people. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, Father, I don't understand. You're a Marian theologian. You're the president right now of the Mariological Society of America. You've written so many books about Mary. Why would you kind of be kicking Mary to the curb? And I don't want you to think I'm kicking Mary to the curb. She is going to be a part of this podcast. I promise you. In fact, just the other day, this week, I recorded an interview, and it's only audio. Once I tell you who it is, but she just wasn't able to get on Zoom to do the interview, so we did just audio. I'll put out a video in terms of just the book cover that we talk about, but I spoke with Donna Marie Cooper O'Boyle about her book, 30 Marian Eucharistic Visits. I have someone on my How They Love Mary planning sheet that they converted from Judaism to Catholicism because of Our Lady. So Our Lady is going to be a part of this podcast, but because every episode isn't about her, I think the rebrand makes sense. So I hope you all accept that. I hope you all understand. If you want, I'm happy to hear from you. I would love to get your feedback. You can message me on Twitter. I think it's open, but maybe it's not. But Facebook at FR Edward Looney, on Instagram at FR Edward Looney. Every day on Instagram, I check both my messages and my message requests. So you can contact me and just give me your thoughts. Give me your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. But be sure to look for the rebrand of How They Love Mary. I'm grateful for the conversations I get to have. I've interviewed people that I just can't believe that they requested. Sometimes, you go out looking for the interview. Other times people request having you interview them. Like, I'm always floored that I get to talk to Roma Downey so often. Roma Downey messages me on Instagram, says, hey, Father, would love to come back on your podcast to share about my latest project. And I'm just very humbled that she wants to do that and that she does that. So the conversations that I've had just floor me. And I just look forward to everything that the future holds. And I hope that you'll stay tuned to this podcast as we kind of exit from How They Love Mary and as a new era begins. Hey, everybody, it's Father Edward. And now I'm signing off from today's episode. God bless you.